If you've ever looked back at your relationships, friendships, romantic, family, and even work, and you keep thinking to yourself, why does this keep happening to me? This video is for you. Because for a lot of people, there's a pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable, controlling, or inconsistent people. And the common explanations don't actually explain the experience. So today we're going to talk about why these dynamics can feel familiar, how they show up across different areas of your life, and why recognizing the pattern is the first real shift. Now, here's what people think that the problem is. Most people are told things like, you just have bad taste, you need higher standards, you're too nice, you're attracting the wrong people. And while those explanations sound logical, they don't really explain why someone can actually see the red flags and still stay, or why someone can leave one relationship and swear that they're done with that type and somehow end up in the same dynamic again. That's where the real answer lives. Here's what's actually happening. What's usually happening has nothing to do with attraction. It has nothing to do with attraction, and it has absolutely everything to do with familiarity. An emotional inconsistency, when people are inconsistent with you, meaning they're hot and cold, they're emotionally unavailable, or they try to control you, it doesn't register as danger. It actually feels familiar to you. Your nervous system registers this feeling of familiarity as something you know how to navigate. And this is where people get confused, because on the surface they'll say things like, I don't even like this. I know this isn't healthy. So why do I keep ending up here? It's because your nervous system isn't choosing based on your preference. It's choosing based on what it learned early on to be normal. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman starts dating a man. He's charming and attentive at first, but he's emotionally inconsistent. Some days they're warm and engaged, and others he's cold and distant. Communication between them is unclear, and the plans that they try to make are vague. Instead of that being a deal breaker for the woman, she finds herself trying harder to impress this man who is hot and cold. She replays conversations in her head, wondering if she said or did something wrong. She waits for the next moment of closeness. From the outside, people around her might say, why don't you just leave? But internally, to the woman, it doesn't feel that simple. Because the unpredictability of being with a man who's hot and cold feels familiar. The emotional highs feel meaningful. When he comes around and he's talking to her, it feels meaningful. And the effort feels necessary. Not because she enjoys instability, but because her system learned early on that connection requires monitoring and constantly adjusting to accommodate the other person. So when the man is hot and cold, her system doesn't register it as a red flag. It registers it as something that she needs to manage. Oh, I need to go into damage control. I need to make sure the next time we talk, I say this thing to him. Maybe that will make him like me more. And this pattern, it usually forms in environments where emotions were present, but they were unstable. So maybe you grew up in a home where your parents weren't always emotionally available. Maybe you didn't do well on a test, they would withdraw their affection or their attention from you. Maybe you started dressing a certain way, you're experimenting with your looks and they're not a fan of your new look, so they withdraw, they're giving you the silent treatment. If you grew up in a home like that, dealing with a hot and cold person as an adult, it will feel familiar to you because you're used to feeling the inconsistency. You're used to people not always being available, and you're probably used to feeling as if it's your fault, that this is something that you need to fix. If you grew up in a home where you have to learn to read the room, you had to anticipate the moods of your parents or your family members or your caregivers, and you also learn that you have to adjust your behavior to maintain the connection. This doesn't require extreme trauma to happen. Sometimes it looks like a parent whose affection depended on their mood. Maybe they closed a deal at work, so they come home and they're happy to see you. But when they're not closing the deal and things aren't going the way that they want and they're in a bad mood, they wouldn't be so affectionate towards you. They wouldn't spend time with you. They wouldn't start conversations with you. They wouldn't engage with you if you showed them your artwork or tried to talk to them about something that was important to you. Could also stem from this could also stem from having caregivers who were loving but they were unpredictable. Like you couldn't tell what would happen next. Like you were always anticipating that something would go wrong and they would get upset and maybe stop caring for you. You learned that your care that you receive is conditional. Maybe they loved you. You could see that they loved you. They provided for you. They made sure you had clothes and food and all the things that you needed physically, but emotionally, maybe you didn't always get the emotional connection that you needed. Or if you also grew up in an environment where being emotionally aware was necessary, like you always had to be aware of your surroundings, you always had to have your guard up, you always needed to be aware, you didn't have that feeling of safety, that could also cause you to attract those relationships where the unpredictability and the coldness feel familiar to you. Over time, your system learns that connection means paying attention. Your system doesn't know what consistent stability feels like. Stability feels uncertain. You might feel like you have to stay alert. You might also notice this pattern in your friendships too, not just your romantic relationships. For example, maybe you're always the friend who is always listening. You're always understanding and you're always giving the benefits of the doubt. You might have friendships that feel close, but they feel draining. Like you'll talk to the person maybe every day, but you always feel like the life is being sucked out of you. You feel tired, your mood changes, you feel drained after you interact with that friend. You might notice that you're the one always checking in. You're the one always smoothing things over. You're the one minimizing your own needs. And when you think about pulling back, that's when the guilt shows up. You might tell yourself, they've had a hard life. They don't mean it, and I don't want to be the one to hurt them, so you stick around because the friendship feels good. And this isn't about being weak, it's about being attracted to a feeling that feels familiar to you. In the workplace, this pattern almost certainly shows up as well. For example, if you're working underneath a boss or a client who is emotionally unpredictable. One day they're appreciative, and then the next day they're distant, they're critical, and they're unclear. Their expectations of your project or your service, whatever it is that you're delivering, it is constantly changing. One day they expect this to happen, the next day they expect that to happen. It's a constant seesaw. Their expectations are always changing. The feedback you receive is inconsistent, and communicating with them feels vague. Instead of asking for clarity so you can know what to do and what not to do, you find yourself overperforming. You answer your emails quickly. You're always trying to stay ahead of potential problems. You're trying to anticipate their needs. Even though this environment feels highly stressful to you, it also feels normal because your system learned at a young age that safety comes from staying alert, not from stability. And this is why leaving these dynamics, leaving these friendships, leaving these romantic relationships, leaving these or enforcing your boundaries in the workplace, it doesn't feel freeing at first. In fact, a feeling of calm is what feels unfamiliar to you. You might find yourself feeling bored when you meet someone and they don't keep you guessing. They're not hot and cold. You might find yourself feeling bored with someone like that because your system is used to the hot and cold, the unpredictability. When you meet a man or you meet a friend who is consistent with their communication, who is consistent with the effort that they put in, who also checks on you, it's not you consistently checking on them and trying to anticipate their needs, it can feel boring to you. When someone communicates clearly with you, maybe they're checking up on you, you might find yourself wondering why. Like, why did she ask me that? Is it that she wants something? She must want something. That's why she said that. And then another thing is guilt often shows up right when you kind of think you need to do something different. You realize, hey, this isn't the situation I want to be in. I have to do something different. This situation doesn't serve me. You might notice that feeling of guilt sneaking up on you. That guilt isn't your intuition, it's conditioning. You have learned this pattern. You've been placed in situations like this over and over and over again, and it feels normal to you. It's conditioning. You've been conditioned to believe that this feeling of danger, of uncertainty, of instability, you've been conditioned to believe that these feelings are normal. This is your nervous system reacting to that unfamiliar feeling of safety. You're not attracting emotionally unavailable or controlling people. You're simply tolerating what your system feels to be normal. And once you finally see that, this pattern stops feeling personal. You find yourself understanding it better. You understand it. You have clarity. Now you can start to do something about it. This understanding is what creates real, meaningful, and lasting change. Because now that you're aware, you have the power to choose. You have the power to choose whether or not you want to keep someone who is hot and cold in your life. You'll recognize when someone like that comes into your life, and you'll be like, no, this person doesn't serve me. I'm not even going to engage with them. I'm not even going to keep the communication with them. I'm not going to keep anticipating their needs. I'm not going to keep putting them ahead of myself. You'll recognize that, and you'll finally start to choose to spend time with people who don't keep you guessing, where you might feel bored with the communication. If this video put words to something that you've always felt but couldn't explain, it matters. Because this clarity is the first step towards change. On this channel, we talk about emotional awareness, boundaries, and building relationships that don't require you to abandon yourself to maintain the connection. If this resonated with you, like this video so YouTube knows that it reached the right people. Subscribe for more conversations like this. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to leave a comment. Even something like, this explains a lot. You're not broken, you're becoming aware. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.